Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Well, it's been quite a while since my last review, maybe I think a couple of months I did Knives Out, but I'm back. And I hope you're all staying safe and staying at home with all this current pandemic that's happening with the COVID-19, but it took me a couple of months to finally get my head around things and work things out and to actually start uploading again, so I'm glad I'm back. But let's get to it, eh? Today I'm going to be reviewing, well, spoiler-free review on Bad Boys 3 or Bad Boys for Life. So let's do this. Now what's interesting about Bad Boys for Life is that it's not actually directed by the original directors of the first two, which was Michael Bay, which, look, didn't really bother me at the start, but then halfway through I'm like, this doesn't really feel like a Michael Bay film. But we'll forget about that for a second. Let's just talk about the storyline and what I thought about Bad Boys for Life in a non-spoiler review. So, the whole movie kind of goes about saying, it's 20 years later, wherever it is, and obviously Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's characters, are getting fairly old. Now, it's all about this kind of mother-son drug lord kind of story where they're kind of from Mexico and they want to wreak havoc or get revenge on certain people in Miami, right? So that's where it kind of starts off like that. You've got this kind of feeling about this drug lord. She's kind of like known as the witch and she's doing all these spells and she wants revenge on people in Miami, okay? So there's the storyline in a nutshell. Bit hollow in a way, but it's an action film, guys. It's not something, major. It's just a Bad Boys movie. You're not going to get, big, huge story, character development. It's just bad guys doing bad things and something happens. And on that, I think her name is Kate Del Castillo, known as plays Isabel, does a really good role, and Jacob Scipio plays Armando, her son. They both do a pretty good job in playing the antagonists of the film. But again, we're talking about our protagonists here, which are Mike and Marcus, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. So let's talk about the good points about Bad Boys for Life, shall we? The great points in it is that if you're a Bad Boys fan and you enjoy these films and you're a fan of Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, which a lot of people in my era, or my generation are, you're gonna laugh. There's some good banter parts in there between the both of them, as normal, okay? Martin Lawrence, looks a bit different to what he did 20 years ago. Obviously he's a lot older. Will Smith, still looks the same in a way as well, but you can tell that out of the both of them, unfortunately, Martin Lawrence does seem to have aged a bit more significantly, right? But they put that into the story as well, part of his character, about how he just wants to sit on the couch and relax and thinking about retiring. So those kind of parts come into play as well. There's some really good funny moments in there with them too, but then it does turn quite serious as well. There's some good scenes where the character development over the last two films is brought into it, and it's not just all bang bang action sequences. Actually, there's some good scenes there where they develop themselves and they speak to each other, and it's kind of like they're brothers in a way, but they're kind of splitting apart. So I don't want to give away too much about it, right? There's some really funny throwbacks, don't want to spoil anything, but Reggie from Part 2, Joe Pantoliano, who plays Captain Howard. Love this guy. He's always played a really good role in all his movies. He comes back with a vengeance as well, and he's got that same kind of character trait of over the top. So he played a really good role in it too. All these characters you saw in the past, they come in, they give these little scenes, these little throwbacks, and it works well. The opening scene was pretty fantastic, I must say. I'm not into cars and all that, but I really like that Porsche that he drives, that Mike drives, and they're speeding around, and kind of gives you that kind of that feeling of Bad Boys 2 when there's a speed chase with a car chase as well. And then at the end of the car chase, something funny happens again to the car. So again, it's kind of like borrowing from Bad Boys 2, which I was cool with, okay? Now, for the bad points, not bad points, but the points that, well, bad, negative, let's get to that, shall we? Now for my negative or slash bad points, I'm not gonna pick too much about the story, but this whole mother and son business and getting vengeance, I kind of get what they were, I can't give away too much. If I keep explaining it, then it's spoilers, right? But it felt really convoluted and a bit ridiculous at times. I'm like, okay, so they're doing XYZ, I get it, but yet what's the ultimate goal here? Maybe I'm missing something, I don't know, but it just felt like we're kind of searching for a story, which they had, they want vengeance on all these key characters of the Miami, well, I can't give away too much, but obviously our protagonists are involved in that, right? They want vengeance on police and lawyers and judges and all that, so it's like, okay, how are we going to get to that? What's interesting is that probably in the first act of the film is that something drastic happens, right? I'm not going to say what, but something major happens, and as an audience member you're like, whoa, are they actually going down that path? Is that actually going to happen? I knew in my head, I was like, there is no way that this is going to happen. And, well, in a real cheap sense of like fast forwarding the story, after all that's happened to that point where you've got these gangsters and the mother and son, they've got a gang in Miami and they're wreaking havoc and killing people, etc. All of a sudden it's like 6 months later. And it's like, okay, 6 months later and people have recovered from certain things, etc. And I'm like, really? I'm like, we just went from this gang that are controlling Miami or are ready to control Miami and shooting people and doing this and that, and then it's just like, okay, 6 months later, I'm like, what happened in those 6 months? I get where the story was going with what happens in that part, which I can't really explain because it's spoiling, but it just seems a real ridiculous kind of way of just fast forwarding exactly what they've put together in this film in the first place. I don't know, it didn't work for me. And then at times, the whole movie felt like a Fast and the Furious movie. Not in terms of like car chases, but just real wooden kind of dialogue. Whenever it wasn't banter, and whenever it was like, you know, serious stuff happening, not talking about Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, but other characters, it just felt that it was straight out of like a real bad B grade. Not saying Fast and the Furious are bad, I'm not a big fan, but that type of dialogue where it's like just ridiculous goons and bad guys talking to each other. It just like didn't feel like a Bad Boys film. Whereas in part 2, the main bad guy, I can't remember his name, but he was in Blow as well. He, Blow with Johnny Depp, he was actually a really good antagonist, and you know, you could understand where he's coming from, etc. Whereas with this, you've got the mother and the son, yeah, I get it, and it's all revealed at the end with this whole ridiculous kind of ending sequence, and well, not even ending sequence, the whole last act of the film, which I'm going to get to now, you find out all these big things, and it's like, whoa, it's kind of like trying to do this whole, not Sixth Sense, Empire Strikes Back, Usual Suspects. You can throw any great, you know, last act sequence of like big twists, and I'm like, wow, we're really going for that kind of twist here, are we? I'm like, okay, you know what? It's an action film, I'll roll with it. But by the end of it, the last say 10-15 minutes where there's a major big shootout and blah blah, I just had enough. I literally had enough, and you could tell that even Martin Lawrence's character had enough in this, and it just seemed that this whole film was built up to all this, and then it's like, okay, this is how it ends. This is how you're gonna end Bad Boys. Maybe there'll be another one, I don't know, but I just felt that if you're a big fan of the franchise, you just felt a bit cheated. I'm not a huge fan of the franchise. I didn't mind Bad Boys 1 and 2. Action's not my favorite genre per se, but I do like, you know, classics like Die Hard, Commando, Bloodsport, all that. But Bad Boys, again, I had friends who were real fans of it. I liked them, but I wasn't obsessed with watching them, okay? And then you had this, you know, the credits, you know, the movie ends and whatever, and then you got a post-credits scene, and it was like, to me, you know, I don't know what everyone else, you can tell me what you thought, but to me, it just felt like facepalm emoji for me. You know, I don't like using emojis in thumbnails and all that, and even like in general, but it felt like that. I'm like, really? We've gone through all this, and this guy's done X, Y, Z throughout the whole film, and you've built him up to being this big antagonist, and then that happens in the post-credits scene. I'm like, what an insult to like the story and to people in the story that were in the original first two, and then all of a sudden, I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, it's just like, why? Yes, we know why. Because you may use certain characters in future films, I get it. So, big no from me, no. So, final thoughts on Bad Boys for Life. Well, I went through my good points and bad points. You guys can make up your mind on what you think when you see the film, but as far as I'm recommending is this: if you're a Bad Boys franchise fan, 1 and 2, watch it, make up your own mind. I don't know if you'll be happy with what I've said. Hey, maybe you'll agree, but I think if you're a big Bad Boys fan, you should be quite disappointed to some extent in some parts of the film. That's why I'm giving Bad Boys for Life a 6.5 out of 10. Yep, that's what it gets. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this review, please leave me a like, comment below, let me know what you thought of the film. And if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all my videos. I really hope that I'll keep uploading more videos, guys, and with all this hashtag stay home, which is what I'm doing at the moment, I will, because I'll have a bit more time to do all that, I guess. But, you know, yeah, so thanks for all your support, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the comments, and yeah, stay safe, stay home, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Daska Discusses. Boom!